Hello, you beautiful nerds. I am Jedi Master Grayson.
And I am your rolling blunt boy, Bill.
and this is Does It Hold Up? Where we revisit classic genre films to see if they are as good or as bad as we remember. And we might get drunk while we do it. Sometimes, mostly all the time. But we can't do it alone. As always, we are joined by a guest to help us determine if this cult classic stands the test of time. You are very correct. This is a very special guest. He was on with us once before. You guys can check out our video where we talked a little bit about Atlanta. You can find him on his YouTube channel, Readus 101, where he does in-depth critical analysis about videos about film and television.
That's right.
And
friend of the show.
And he's also just a cool fucking guy. Laurent Readus, welcome back to the show.
Thank you guys for having me again. That's also, aw shucks.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming by, man. Like I mentioned before, yeah, you were very excited to talk about today's film, The Shadow, 1994.
Oh, man. It feels like somebody has to be excited to talk about it.
Well, yeah, it's definitely got its lovers out there, and it's definitely got its haters. It's on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 35% critic score and a 44% audience score. So a little bit higher audience score, a little bit lower,
making it one of the lowest audience scores and critic ratings that we've covered on the show so far.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, usually you'll see like, the audiences live at like 70%, critics like 40%, but this is kind of on the lower end. But yeah, let's start with you, Laurent. Like we usually start this show off by asking how you felt about the movie the first time you watched it.
Right. First time
before we get into
first of all,
today.
Was this the first time you watched it when you saw it? And how did you feel if it was the first time you watched it?
So I was introduced. I was alive and physically conscious enough to be to remember when this was released in theaters, because I was born in '88 and the movie was released in the mid-'90s. I always wanted to see it. I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, but I always wanted to see it. In this instance, a little bit of backstory in this case. In this instance, I rarely say it as a good thing, but in this instance, I was born to baby boomer parents. So my father was old enough to have grown up with the actual radio show, The Shadow.
He listened like the Orson Welles show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wearing this. I should have put this.
My mom was ridiculously overprotective, and because she only ever heard of Batman and Superman, she didn't know what The Shadow was, and my dad had to remind her. So she didn't allow me to see it in theaters. It wasn't until my dad reminded her about what The Shadow was that she was like, okay, well, I guess when it comes out on video or comes out on TV, we'll let him watch it.
Right.
Until then, before then, however, my dad decided, because remember, this was the 90s, so these still existed, found an avenue. I found an avenue to produce to me, or use this as an avenue to introduce me to the concept of the radio shows back in the day by buying me the cassette tapes of like the first season of The Shadow.
Oh, so you were like that interested. You had to go back.
Yeah. And once again, I still couldn't see the movie, but it was like but I listened to those and I saw how, and like I visualized how like the radio plays were. That was my introduction to like the radio plays back in like the 40s over. And I realized that was the concept. And then once I was finally allowed to see the movie, when it did come out on TV and had syndicated releases, it was a lot easier for me to like picture things. So as far as so basically, I was like how every comic book nerd was when they saw inaccuracies in like origins versus comics versus movies, because
You were that.
because
They didn't do that in the original IP, guy.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, and you are you're absolutely correct in that, because the Shadow movie that we received is actually plays as an origin to how the Shadow, the radio show, was played out, because it did exist as its own entity before it was adapted to radio. Like, it was definitely in pulp magazines and everything, but they had to change a few things for the radio, because it's his origin. His origin is a bit more convoluted, and it kind of simplified things down.
Right.
And if you actually listen to the radio show and then you watch the movie, you'll see similarities, and you'll see like origins of certain things, and you'll see like different like isms and whatnot, that the radio show had, that they were calling back to and using the movie to call back to. So it was interesting in that regard. Once, being as young as I was and hearing those callbacks, I was literally like Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing. They did the thing. They did that thing in the radio show.
That's so cool. Like, I was like I've never met anyone who like actually listened to the pulp, like the radio series, or read the pulp comics, honestly. So that's cool that you have that unique perspective coming into it, backed by more nostalgia than even your typical 90s kid going watching this movie.
Listen, whatever what dad was having in the cars, and I couldn't care less about them, so whatever we could do to bond, he took advantage of it.
Yeah, so like our experience was more like back in the day, for you kids at home, they used to do a lot of promotions for these movies. You know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe you probably can't hear me that well. They do a lot of promotions for these movies, and we got that education that you grew up with your father. We got that education in about 15-20 minutes on probably ABC or Entertainment Tonight or something like that. And so we knew about the Orson Welles show, but had never listened to it and had no frame of reference, really. But yes, you saying that makes this movie make a little bit more sense. You know what I mean? Like, as far as the origin story and like things that they could have did differently. But yeah, I don't have to speak on our experience too much. We had all the toys, we had everything. Don't trip. We was the Shadow fans.
Listen, Universal Studios saw what Warner Brothers did with Batman, and they're like, Lord, I've seen what you've done with others, and I want you to do that for me. That's pretty much what happened.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Not even taking into consideration that outside, like, that's the Shadow is literally one half of the inspiration for Batman. The other half is, of course, Zorro.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like so it's funny seeing seeing learning that like the Shadow was like a part of the inspiration for Batman, as far as like as far as like the concept and everything, and then later on going, especially once you see like modern day like comic adaptations and crossovers, because I think Batman and the Shadow have like 2 modern day crossovers right now, because DC's been working with Dynamite Comics, and Dynamite Comics is currently the producer of the Shadow comics, which are all yes, and who are also pretty accurate. They're more along the lines of like how the character was in the pulp in the pulp magazines and everything like that. But it's pretty much the same situation.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up like obviously the Shadow was a inspiration of Batman, but yeah, like the Batman movie, the 89 and the 91 Batman Returns movie, like they both obviously influenced this film, because you can tell just from like the production design and like everything that Even you mentioned it felt kind of like Batman the animated series because it almost had this timeless feel to it. While sort of having like that industrial 1920s age aesthetic to it.
Also, I mentioned the fact that nobody knows what the fuck time period you're in. Like, you got all this technology that ain't nobody else got. Like, damn, nobody knows what time period we in. Like, clearly they should do more crossovers with Batman and the Shadow because they clearly live in the same time.
The beginning of this movie, it does kind of start off on a weird foot because not really like it does is apparently following the First World War. Follows our main character Lamont Cranston, which by the way, that's a black dude's name, right? Like
all black dudes' names, all American black dudes' names was once a white man, or ambiguously, non-racial.
You're right. Yeah. This is before,
and then we've laid claim to them so many times to the point where now everybody stereotypically calls it a black name.
Right. Like Tyrone.
Exactly.
Tyrone is a French white man's name.
Yep.
Yeah,
now it's a nigga name.
Yeah, this is right after. Yeah, this is right after the First World War. So like, white people hadn't been like, yeah, y'all can have Lamont yet. They were still holding on to it.
Hold on to Lamont, man. I like Lamont.
Yeah,
like those name, man. I'm naming my son Lamont. I want to name him Lamont.
Like now it's like, oh, Lamont Cranston. Yeah, he played point guard for the Georgia Bulldogs. I believe.
Now, Tony, you can't name your son Lamont. That's a nigger's name. That's a nigger's name. Can't name him Lamont.
It's like Tyrone. I believe you're right.
But Lamont saved my life during the war.
But yeah, we follow Lamont Cranston. He's apparently set up himself to be a drug kingpin and warlord in Tibet.
Right.
Which is
fucking weird, man. But now that you just mentioned the origin of
this part
Welles radio show, give us some context into how maybe this connects to this background connects to the Orson Welles.
So this background, so the movie they did, it's mostly a connection to the radio show, but this part of his origin comes straight from the Pope. The concept is that the Tulku, who in this iteration, pretty much, mystical monks from the Orient, because it's the 1920s,
right?
Teach the white man their tricks, and but in Lamont's case, it's basically as a way of atoning for his sins, because if you know the whole concept of the whole catchphrase of the Shadow, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men, the point is that the Tulku are supposed to reveal that darkness within their hearts so that they can go on a path of redemption, by teaching white people how to use telekinesis and telepathy.
It is amazing. That is amazing. Look, and we get our friend, what's his name? Is it Chow?
Oh yeah, John.
Johnny Chow.
Dang, I forgot his name already. John. I think it is John Chow.
John Chow from. He's most recently in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh yeah.
John Cho.
John Cho. Excuse me, Mr. Cho, the God. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, wait, no, damn, not John Cho. I'm sorry.
I think it's Johnny Cho. Now I forgot what I said.
But no, he was in the beginning of the movie. Yeah, I'll pull him up.
But he was at the beginning of the movie. I just wanted to bring him up and shout him out because he played the father, and like I said, in Everything Everywhere All at Once. He did a lot of acting. He's probably like the oldest actor in Hollywood, like as far as his acting age, because he started acting as a child actor in Hollywood, because back then they didn't use a lot of Asians.
Right.
When they needed an quote unquote authentic Asian, they would use children from Chinatown. And so, I just wanted to shout him out and all the Asians in this movie, because we had a lot of non-Asians in this movie playing Asians. So I wanted to shout out all of the actual Asians in this movie.
Yeah. James Hong.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's like he was in this. He was Poe's dad in Kung Fu Panda. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Yep. Was not surprised to see him because I believe I might have seen him earlier on in The Golden Child. Would be surprised.
Well, yes.
Mhm.
The Golden Child, which we got to put on the list.
Yeah, that's got to go on the list for sure. Oh my gosh, The Golden Child.
But
yeah.
Here he is in a dress. No, I'm joking. Here he is right here, man, making an appearance. Look at him looking good.
Yeah, young John Cho. Oh no, not John Cho. Why do I keep saying that? James
Hong.
I'm definitely getting letters after this.
I knew it was. We getting all kind of letters. Please put it in the comments first, and add us at the Drunk Banthas. Okay?
Yeah, but so my assumption is that they added this for that aspect of redemption to give to give Lamont Cranston a form of an origin story for this. Because how it's done in the pulp, it's once again very convoluted. In the pulp, Lamont Cranston is a persona.
Right.
In the pulp, his name is Kent Allard, and he goes through this exact same thing. And then he meets the real Lamont Cranston, blackmails him into using his identity so that he can move and be comfortable in New York City. And operate as a shadow that way because they look alike. But the radio show was like, that's too complicated. Let's just make him Lamont Cranston from the get-go.
And apparently that's the way that the studio went as well, because they did not have to do that in this movie. I think it was the first thing that threw me off, and it kind of makes it hard to get into the movie. Which kind of speeds us up. I'm just gonna speed up a little bit to we go from him getting going through this scene, killing this guy, showing how evil he is, why he had to do Jimmy Hong like that. That's crazy. But showing how evil he is really quickly. And then he gets kidnapped by Jimmy Hong's brothers because he promised him his brothers would get revenge. And he's taken to this little golden child looking dude. What was he in? He was in something about the Emperor.
Oh, no, that was the other guy, the guy who plays the main villain, James. Oh yeah, James Lawn.
That's right. That kid's got a bald head though, man. That's one serious bald head.
John.
He had the best.
He has a really good bald head.
He has an amazing bald head, and he had the best ADR in the whole movie. Because ADR is kind of shitty in this.
Oof, yeah, it's really spotty. For a movie that uses it a lot, yeah, you can definitely tell every time they do it.
Why use ADR on a guy when he's got a mask on anyway? Like, just put a mask on. I don't know. It's just weird. Put a microphone. It seems like the easiest way to sneak a microphone into a film. Like put it under his mask.
Yeah, and now we're like before. Actually, we do want to touch on the mask and the costume and the prosthetics. Really, and
you want to continue on this?
Well, yeah, we'll just mention that. Yeah, he does get the redemption powers from the Tulkun guy, or is that the right
Tulku?
Tulku.
Yeah.
First of all, there's a disclaimer. There will be mispronunciations, and that's kind of what we do here. If you don't know, now you know. Okay, we mispronounce things. If you would like, you could put the right pronunciation. If we manage to fuck it up, put it in the comments right now.
Yeah, I did like the idea of just like the concept of him like being a bad person. And them kind of getting this power forced upon him is like, no, you're gonna do the right thing because I said so.
Or I'll kill you with my little dragon knife.
Yeah,
my little demon knife, man.
Yeah, it's like that.
What was the knife called again?
Oh, I forgot what the name of the CGI bitey knife.
Yeah,
yeah, I think it was called.
I think Polka or something like that. You have to really listen when he calls it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I, like myself, if I was Alec Baldwin, I would have been like, yo, son, you just tried to like kill me. Yo, son, why did you just like, why didn't you get this knife up off me earlier? You got powers over this knife, and you didn't try to get him off me earlier. You just let him fuck me up out here, stab me in my leg, dog.
Yeah, like I thought it was an interesting concept. But yeah, like the whole like call to action, like refusal to action, and then becoming the superhero happens really, really fast.
So
and
fast, we go to the next scene. He's
yes,
already the shadow.
Yeah, it's like we cut to 7 years later, but not before like a crawl that usually happens at the beginning of a movie to tell you what's going on. But then we finally get an introduction to the shadow. Now, what did you guys think of like the actual shadow, like the costume design, the introduction of his powers in like this opening scene?
Oh, the costume design was little around loved the costume design. It was so simple, and it was just like little around didn't care how bad or how shitty the concept was. He just wanted more superheroes. So just seeing how he looked. Didn't necessarily know that this was his power set until after listening to the radio show, and then I just saw a dude in a black trench with a black hat and a cape and a red scarf over his mouth. I was like, he looks awesome.
Yeah, I can't lie. That costume is super cool. And even like when we were kids, we had a toy of the shadow, and I remember being like sort of disappointed because he looked nothing like he did in the movie.
You had to press together the legs to his eyes to glow red.
Yes.
I had those same toys, and I had the quote unquote shadow mobile.
Oh, you had the shadow mobile.
It was basically just a prowler. It was basically a prowler.
Yeah, like it's one of the most disappointing parts. Like, that must have been the only toy that they had, because like how does every person that the 80s baby that I know only have the shitty shadow toy where they don't?
Everybody, no, it was they had
the ninja shadow, they had the invisible shadow.
I do remember the invisible shadow.
Didn't we have
invisible toys? Was shadow? Like. I don't think we had the invisible shadow, but
we had an invisible.
We had an invisible turtles one, which I think invisible toys were just like the craze at the time.
It was just clear plastic.
It was clear plastic. I was like, these were defective.
Right?
They were like, "Yo, we gotta get these off, dog." It's like invisible Michelangelo. Hell yeah, dog! You just got a promotion, Josh.
Well, in this case, it made sense because it played into like the whole like Cloud Men's mind things and everything like that, which just makes you think that like according to how like superpowers work, if somebody is so all it takes is for somebody to be so strong-willed to be able to just look at somebody, be able to see these 5 thugs or whatever, while this caped person just bodies them, and they look like they can't see him, and they're just you can just imagine that. Like you just like you have the most strongest will, and you're on your way back home from going to like Starbucks or some shit, and you just see these 5 people being bodied by this one guy in a cloak, and they're acting like they can't see him, and you're just like, the fuck is going on? Because that's pretty much how his powers work. As long as their IQ was trash, he could pretty much make it seem like he couldn't be seen. It did make sense that the one takeaway that they could give is that the only thing they could see about him was his shadow.
Yeah, that opening scene where we see the shadow for the first time, that dude starts shooting like crazy because he's scared. I would have left. If I was the 2 guys hanging out with him, I would have just left. I'd have been like, nah, hell no, dog. You almost shot me, and you're out here shooting everything for no reason. Like, there's people coming. People are looking at us, dog. This is embarrassing. Yep. You know, like, I don't know, man. It was definitely like a good depiction of like how crazy this would look if you had to see somebody, if you happen to walk by and somebody was getting their ass beat by a shadow. So it was funny. I did like that part, but I didn't. It went a little too long because the dude was just shooting down hallways and shit. Dude was shooting underneath the bridge.
Yeah, his freak out moment lasted a little too long.
Dude was shooting. I think he just had some issues. He just needed to get that. He needed to get that off. Like that. If he didn't do that day, he was gonna kill them 2 dudes he was with.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
If he did not get that in, he was not gonna like
someone's gonna die today by my hand.
By my hand.
And yeah, then we get to later we get the introduction of our villain, played by John Lone. What did you guys think of the villain in this movie? Genghis Khan, descendant.
Shiwan Khan, the last descendant of Genghis Khan. He was this is my introduction to him. And then the second time I would see him would be in Rush Hour 2 as Ricky Tan. And I was like, he hasn't aged at all.
Not at all.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, he's a really, really good actor. And it's a weird theme that keeps popping up in Does It Hold Up? A lot of these movies that we talk about is Asian all-stars. Like these movies, it's there are a lot of diversity in the early 90s and late 80s with these really good underrated Asian actors.
The dude from Die Hard and Double Dragon, he was in this too.
Yeah, that's right. Al Leone, yeah, he was in this too.
Oh, you mean Forever an Extra?
Forever an Extra.
He's also in Lethal Weapon. He was the one torturing torturing Murtaugh with the sponge.
That's right. Yeah, he's man, he is a total all-star.
It's like that one Latino extra that's always cast as Carlos.
Yes, Hector. Yeah, we talked about him on the Fast and the Furious episode. Yeah, he's there's a lot of Asian and brown black actors who got a lot of shine and got these interesting character roles in movies like this, and then they just kind of disappeared for a little while, where we got a lot of CW casting.
Y'all don't really, you actors out there today, y'all are not doing it like they was doing it back then. You know what I'm saying? Al Leone has never said a word in a movie almost. But guess what? He's improved people's movies 10 times fold by being in their movie.
This is true.
Yeah, he's pretty incredible.
No, Shiwan Khan was dope in my opinion. His drip was immaculate, especially during the scenes where it's like he's monologuing to his henchmen. It was like that. There was this one scene where he's just laying on the ground and his cloak literally matches the the embodiment of the ground of the floor, and it'll just saw him rise and just kind of vogue to the camera. It's like that shit looks dope as fuck.
Yeah, that was literally the most. That was the most beautiful shot of the
until
I tried to find the clip, but I couldn't. But yeah, go ahead.
Until the motherfuckers start swinging the.
Yep.
I was literally like, "Oh shit, this is really cool. This is really dope." And then they were like, "We
can't play it right now because YouTube won't let us play YouTube videos."
No, that's true.
The Shadow is right now available on YouTube, and that's basically the only place I can find it. So
it's interesting because it's like it was because it's funny because it was just knowing just because for Shiwan Khan in the pulp is pretty much Shadow's Joker. So it made sense that this was the villain he would have, that they would have the Shadow face off against. And then, but at the same time, the association with Genghis, it just realizing it's like, damn, how would Ghost of Tsushima would have played out if this motherfucker was?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting villain to go with, and knowing that is from the actual original source material makes a lot more sense. Because at first I was just like, I guess you could have kind of used anybody if it's just like a disciple of the Toku. Toku. I'm gonna pronounce it wrong every time.
No, it's like if anything, because once again, these are white folk writing these stories in the 1920s. So of course Shiwan had all of the Asianisms, all of the stereotypes.
Oh yeah,
and it just was
absolutely.
like the Fu Manchu mustache. I was just going back to the and then you see and then you see John Lone over here just like the long hair, the beard, the
Yeah,
swag, and just like and it's the presence, and it's just like when when you see when you take the source material and you see how like ridiculous, or in this case uh like stereotypically coded that it is, and then you have some and you bring somebody along and they do what needs to be done in as far as like getting the presentation out there. um you can definitely tell that the typecasting uh not necessarily worked to his advantage, but it definitely gave a sense. It definitely gave him a sense of, okay, I this was a racist ass caricature back in the day.
yeah,
Let let me let me improve on this.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, let me do what I can to improve on this.
Yeah, you guys
Exactly.
gotta Google it. I don't know if he pulled it up.
Well, it's not a. This isn't a picture of the actual character. I was trying to find a picture of the character Khan from the comic.
Oh no, yeah,
Like
but
yeah,
I saw a picture of him and he's very
Yep.
very
Yep.
typical.
Yep.
Very
Yeah.
very racist.
Yep.
yeah.
We're not gonna show it on this show. We're not gonna show it at risk of getting demonetized. You know what I'm saying? We'll leave that to the likes of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
Yeah, nowadays we're much more evolved. We would just get Tilda Swinton to play the role.
That's right.
It's true. It's true.
But yeah, like so apparently Khan's plan is to kidnap and manipulate Professor Reinhardt, who is played by the incredible, the impeccable Ian McKellen in one of his first Hollywood movies.
His
first Hollywood movie.
First Hollywood
had to rewatch it as a grown ass man to realize that was fucking Magneto.
Right?
Yeah, right. I had no memory of him being in this movie, but I guess we wouldn't have. He wasn't particularly great in this role, in my opinion.
He was mind control the majority of it, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have like a great character. Like, he's just pretty much
Mhm.
just a plot device. And he admitted in an interview like later that he had trouble with the American accent. It's like, I'm like, my daughter was American, so I had to be American, and I just felt weird about it. But then, Tim Curry was on the set, so it was cool. like we're old buddies, so we got to hang out.
What that means in British film and stage play, what that means is they got drunk and they got
put it past me.
They was
exactly.
Fuck. That's what they do. Like, hey, Tim Curry was there, so I was bourboned out.
Yeah, like I would put it past that, because there are a couple of scenes, like you were talking about the guy in the opening scene, who was like having way too much fun with the Tommy gun. Tim Curry had some fun with the Tommy gun later on when he was like spinning around like Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah, was drunk.
Yeah,
was lit on set for sure, which probably means that Alec Baldwin had no fun because he was probably taking it dead ass serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially considering that he was actually up against Michael Keaton for Batman, so this was pretty much.
It was chance.
Yeah, pretty
redeem myself.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It was him, Michael Keaton, and I believe Mel Gibson. But yeah, Tim Curry. This was. I really enjoyed how they like use this scene to like actually show what it means for the shadow to like quote unquote cloud men's minds, because you could actually see, like, if you really pay attention, you could actually see like the clouds like forming on the ceilings and shit to like symbolize shadow taking over his mind and shit like that.
Yeah, you can definitely like see like how they visualize yeah, that's how he's, like you said, just like completely clouding their minds. I think they could have even done a little bit more to just like emphasize on that theme, because I like that theme of the character really a lot.
The shadow knows. The shadow knows.
The shadow knows.
The shadow knows. That's got to be a play on his big ass nose. Is it not? This motherfucker nose is massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Tommy gun action. These two guys had too much fun with this. It
must have been a blast. Not, pun not intended, honestly.
This is ridiculous. Ah, man, them dudes was having too much fun.
Yeah, and honestly, like the shadow knows, like that was probably my favorite line, and then it's probably because it harkens back to the pulp series. I didn't like the placement of it, because like in the placement of the radio show, it is like answering more of a question about like who sees the heart, the evil in the hearts of men. But then the dude was just like, how did you know I was gonna be there? Like, it seems a little less,
but not.
It was a way of incorporating the tagline. Yeah,
it was.
But the delivery
was off. The dude's
off. I like the delivery.
No, because the first time it happened, he goes. I was like, wait.
They had to tick all the boxes because
all in one moment.
yeah.
I was like, hold on, sir. How do you know now? How do you know? The shadow knows. Okay. That wasn't as funny as you made it seem like it was gonna be. I thought that was gonna be more funny. You didn't say something funny, sir. You didn't say anything funny.
Yeah, I thought that like the line itself, it probably could have been, if they used it a few more times, just like to make it seem like a callback type of thing. Maybe it would have seemed so sweaty in that moment. They could have just like spread it out a little bit more, so they didn't have to fit the moment of everything in that one line.
I feel like my nose is not big enough to pull this off.
Yeah, you don't have the shadow nose.
I don't have.
So.
That means I know nothing.
It's hard to tell if it was a prosthetic or if it was one of the Baldwin brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah, because there have been a lot of there's been a lot of speculation
all
about
on the internet
whether it was Daniel Baldwin or
so look,
for like some of the
three scenarios here. There's three possibilities. It was Alec Baldwin in a prosthetic. It was somebody else in a prosthetic, or it was Daniel Baldwin in a prosthetic. Now, which one?
There have been scenes where you can see him, quote unquote, mid transformation before the sash is put around his nose and his mouth, where it looks like it could be him, but it also couldn't be.
Right,
because that was the one time he was in the cab, and then once Shiwan Khan was giving him the work before he figured out how to use his telepathy.
That shit don't look like no damn.
Yeah,
bring that shit back up.
Yeah, that's one where it just like it's really
look like no damn Alec Baldwin right there.
Ultimately, it's just a weird choice. I guess that they just wanted to make sure that it was the nose was as prominent as it is in like the images of the pulp comics.
Alec Baldwin has a big nose.
I guess not big enough.
He didn't have a big enough nose. He's got a big enough nose. Yeah, maybe they're trying to say that the shadow has a prosthetic face when he's the shadow.
Either that or that's part of the whole clouding men's minds, where here's an image, here's how I want you to perceive, here's what I want you to perceive the shadow as.
Right. Yeah, I could see that.
That makes more sense. I will say one thing I liked about this movie, or another thing I liked about this movie, was the use of shadow, like use of lighting to create the scene, the mood of each scene.
Yeah,
they definitely utilized it well.
And you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I also really enjoy like the set design. This came straight out of fucking Enter the Dragon. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, it's funny seeing like all the mirror fight scenes in the third act.
In the 90s, they brought the 90s. Another thing that we've learned doing this show, mirrors.
Yep.
The third act, you gotta have mirrors.
Yeah, you gotta have mirrors. Yeah.
And like and you talked about the Art Deco and everything. It was like, yeah, it's very much that, but at the same time, it also factors into like the one commonality that a lot of like 90s Universal Picture productions had. It's like you can tell that this is a universal movie because of like the way that the cameras that they use, like the film grains use, like if if you compare this like both a day or a night shot to like any scene from like I don't know fucking Death Becomes Her, you can clearly tell that both of these bitches are Universal films because of how like the film quality is, or just like how and just like how quote unquote crisp it looks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like like movies like Death Becomes Her. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I just recently watched that. It's like it definitely has that kind of vibe. Obviously, Batman movies like The Phantom that I think came out
it
before
also
this.
had like a 19 like black and white,
yeah,
like a noir, kind of vibe. Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
had a noir vibe, especially that scene that you just pulled up. Like they shot things like it would have been shot back in the day. They took a lot of risk with that, in my opinion, because in the 90s, people trying to see something new.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely took a risk with that, but I definitely feel like they used the cinematography in an interesting way. Very little CGI because this is pre ambitious CGI,
right?
So there's a lot of practical stuff. Like little gadgets that the Shadow would use that I thought were really interesting.
I'm curious because I asked Alex this off pod. What would you change, Lord? What would you change about this movie? Not like just not what would they got wrong, but what would you change to make this movie better?
Now in modern so I've listened to the radio show. I've read the Dynamite comics. I know how this film is supposed to act as like the precursor to the radio show, with like how they use the concept of Margot Lane, and using that as an explanation of how she knows who the Shadow is. One of the things that I notice now as an adult that I didn't when I was a kid, because all I cared about as a kid was more superheroes, was pretty much how race was included in 1920s New York. I've made plenty of videos on how like northern whites they're still racist, but they just hide their racism better than the southern whites back in Jim Crow era. And it was like, but there's one thing I appreciate about the Dynamite comics that I wish I would be able to like retrofit and go back, is like how including the separation of like white New York and black New York. Because the Cobalt Club is clearly a reference to the Cotton Club, where black folk can perform but they can't attend, and we clearly see that in the movie. But that's pretty much all that we see, that separation. And I understand why, because of the whole concept of like, this ancient ass descendant of Shi Wan Khan, who's already an Asian stereotype, is trying to create the first atomic bomb to destroy New York. And it was like, well, we already have like good Asian representation from from Professor Han, who the Shadow saves earlier and helps shows Lamont that he's building an atomic bomb. But that also factors into the whole stereotype of the good minority,
right?
Kind of
the exceptional minority. Yeah,
exactly. I want. So in the Shadow Year One, which basically follows Kent Aller taking on the Lamont Cranston persona to take on the Shadow persona, shows that disconnect between white New York and black New York, even Chinatown as well, and does it in a way where it makes sense and it's viable to both the story and still holds true to how like the illusion, quote unquote, of like, you know, racial acceptance was for white Northerners and everything like that. Because they painted it like, come to the North, we'll accept you and everything like that. But in actuality, it was basically the equivalent of like episode 3 of Lovecraft Country, where there's a where because she's bought a house into a white neighborhood, there's a cross on fire and things like that. Even though the house was haunted out of its fucking ass.
God, that was such a good show.
But yeah, I wish there was more of that, and especially seeing how serious Lamont Cranston is in his crusade, and seeing and him being forced to realize that because he can be completely blindsided by his mission to actually take the whole I don't see color shit literally and think and not necessarily think about what it means for a black individual to be in these white spaces when he needs them to, and like actually like use some common sense. And I feel like that's one of his biggest flaws that can be very interesting to watch play out and watch him learn, especially when you see how cold and calculating he is and how he uses the Lamont Cranston persona as that, instead of being this lively all-American, completely reformed from his days as a spice trader or whatever the fuck.
Wow.
As Alec Baldwin
America,
portrays.
Jack. It's like
exactly
7 years in Tibet.
I'm talking about taking over the world.
It's the United States of America you're talking about there.
Exactly.
He could have like married himself a nice black woman and then had himself a son and named him Lamont, and that therefore creating.
Listen. When I played D&D and one of my in the last charity game, I literally played the Shadow. If Lamont Cranston married black and had a black descendant.
That's amazing.
So yeah.
Did you have like a change that you would have made in the movie or anything like that?
Man, I had too many changes that I would have made. But I mean, if I'd have made one change, I think they should have made his power. They should have done more with his powers. You know what I mean? They took advantage of being able to, it's the Shadow, so he's a Shadow.
Yeah,
there he is.
That's definitely more response to the radio show. The clouding men's minds thing was basically done for the radio show to have that element, and that's one of the things that was later on adapted in like the Dynamite comics and later on like that. So, no, he was a stone cold killer. In the Dynamite comics, he didn't give a fuck about anybody. Pretty much, the only social grace that he had was Margot Lane.
Yeah, see, I needed more of that. I think it would have gone darker, and it would have been a little bit different, a little bit better. I'd say better.
Yeah, like speaking on hearing what both of you guys had to say about just like changes you guys would have made, I could see if you give like say Misha Green HBO Max TV show and it's like, hey, I want you to adapt the Shadow, and Like we want you to have it focus more on the duality of man and like the complexity of race at the time and all that stuff. Like that would have been really, really dope because again, it just builds more into the themes of the shadow of just like what makes a person bad. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
What kind? Like, how are you going to handle this? How are you going to handle this evil? Like when the cause of it in their heart is because of police brutality, and like nobody will give the motherfucker a job because of the color of his skin. It's like how like who knows what who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men, because and who knows how they got that evil to begin with, and who knows if it's who knows if it's
I'll tell you
who knows if it's even evil, who knows if it's even. It's like
the shadow knows.
Exactly. The shadow should know that it's systemic racism.
Yeah, it's like yeah. If the shadow knows, he should be like, you should be peeping some this institutionalized racism that's going on.
Exactly.
I fight where the shadows take me,
and I do. I could even like see how, you know, like a 90-minute movie is a lot to tackle in that time frame.
Right.
But yeah, given like a
they wanted
eight episode series,
so they wanted to do a sequel. So it would have made sense to get some groundwork. Get some groundwork, make us invested. It did make some money, but it didn't make enough money to do a sequel because this movie came out the same weekend as
it was Lion King
the first weekend, and then the second weekend Forrest Gump came out.
That's right.
Then the third weekend
True Lies.
Oh man,
like it had no chance. This is like does Universal Studios not look at the movies?
Yeah, they were not checking the calendar that month. Yeah.
Well, in their defense, they, like even Disney, wasn't expecting Lion King to take off. Their bread. They put all their chips and dollars into Pocahontas, but Lion King took off instead. And funny thing, you mentioned the sequel. The sequel would have actually probably have had that association between Black New York and White New York, but it probably would have done it in a very bad way because from what I've researched myself, the villain was the Voodoo Man or something. So it probably would have tapped into that fucking live or let die energy from James Bond.
Jim would have had a lot of Jamaican accents in that movie.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I thought of because like that's actually the first James Bond book that I ever bought. Like just like but it was like, oh shit, Leah, it was like for super cheap. It was for 20 cents at some bookstore. I was like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and pick it up. And then I read a couple chapters and I realized why it was only 20 cents.
Yep.
For y'all who don't know, that means it was racist.
Yeah, I'll let you guys
That's probably the reason why the MCU hasn't introduced Brother Voodoo yet, but
Brother Voodoo, come on, make an appearance, baby.
Which is funny because Brother Voodoo was one of the most powerful magic users in the Marvel universe.
Can we give him a different name? Let's get him in there.
Yeah.
Just call him Voodoo. Don't call him Brother Voodoo. First of all, that's when we go click it up. Click it up right there. Just Voodoo.
It's gonna be called it's gonna be called New Orleans Man, coming to Disney Plus. Black History Month 2024.
Orleans Man, that's a great one.
But yeah, like you guys mentioned, the film did well, but not great. Film started off strongly, debuting at number 2 behind, but failed to sustain any momentum and grossed $32 million domestically, with a worldwide of $48 million against a $40 million budget. So didn't do great, especially with how much advertising that I'm sure that they did.
They did a lot, as I pointed out in the beginning of this video.
Once again, they wanted that Batman money.
They saw the money that Batman was raking in, and
give it to me.
They wanted to get some of that sweet comic book cash. But again, this was before CGI was like really great, so you didn't really have the technology to make even your X-Men movies. So a lot of people were getting into the cult movies
because afterwards they make the Phantom, and they use almost no CGI in that.
That's true.
Yeah,
or even maybe none.
Yeah, I think that they were really
I think they were trying to save some money. I think they were like, shit, we done spent a whole bunch of money on that last one.
Just Billy Zhang and Shang Tsung.
Oh man, I can't wait to dive into
we're doing that too, people.
Yeah, that one's definitely on the list. But it's funny because like on paper, it seems like this movie would be kind of a home run. It's got the director of Highlander, Russell Maliki.
Russell Maliki.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. And David Koepp, he wrote Jurassic Park. So it seems like on paper it'd be kind of a slam dunk. But I guess this does come to the time of the show.
Well, first of all, I want to say it's a slam dunk, but unless you're fighting, look, if you got Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, and Scottie Pippen on your team, man, like shit, you're not gonna win, man. You're not gonna win that game.
Yeah,
I'm from Detroit, so mine is like Ben Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dirty Rash.
Yeah,
man. Because that was just they stood no chance. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Universal do better. They won't. They haven't since. I'm just saying we've got proof that it doesn't work out for them when they try to copy what some other studio is doing. It never.
This is true. But considering all everything that I've heard that's just been disheartening me from Warner Brothers and just the state of the MCU in general, is just like, damn, who can I go to if I want to get one of my superhero stories made? Because I used to want to go to Warner Brothers, but they acting like some bitches now. Disney, no. So it's like my choices are now either Universal again or Paramount at this point.
Paramount, go Paramount, man.
I would tell just from my enjoyment of the past I don't know, a few years, take your money to Jeff Bezos, because The Boys and Invincible are like coming with some of my favorite stuff that's come out.
This is true.
So I am very cannot be objective in this one. I love Bob Evans, so go with Paramount. This is my Bob Evans impersonation, and you need to go with Paramount, baby. Listen here, sweetheart. You go with Paramount, we'll do you right.
That's pretty good, Bob Evans. Yeah. Now I'm just thinking.
This is the time. Exactly. I know you're just thinking about Bob Evans right now.
Yeah, I was like, man, I didn't finish that show. I need
you gotta finish. Go watch The Offer. But yes, time to ask the question.
Yes. Does it hold up? Yes, at the end of each episode, we vote not necessarily if it's a good film, but if it is just as enjoyable as the first time we saw it. So, Laurent, since you're our special guest, we'll let you start it off.
The question is,
does it hold up?
I think it does. It could have done a lot of things differently, and the things that it did like address, as far as like they could have gone complete Asian character with a lot of the aspects. Like there are some things that just had to be that way, like the toku, and pretty like Hollywood and even like white storytelling in general has a very interesting relationship when it comes to Asian men teaching white folks how to use magic. That's how Doctor Strange started. And then they fixed that later on. And then with the aspect of redemption for Lamont Cranston, you can definitely see that that he's working on that. That's definitely a plot device, especially once he meets Margot Lane. Ji-Won Khan could have been the stereotype evil agent mastermind,
Yeah.
but he was a swagged out John Malone. So it's just just trolling Lamont with in every possible way that he can. And a very interesting villain. Was hard. His performance made it easier to like disassociate with those stereotypes. Same with like the side characters. Tim Curry was great. A lot. Yeah. If you're like me and you had access to the radio show before you saw this, you could definitely see like the parallels. If you read the comics that are out nowadays, you can see where the movie was trying to go. Like I said, could have done a lot. They could have done a lot of stuff differently regarding like black-white relations as far as New York in the 1920s as in that time. But I still believe it. I still believe it holds up.
Okay.
Well, Alex, my question for you is:
Does it hold up? I've been kind of on the fence with this because I did really like it as a kid, and rewatching it today and like last night a little bit, I was like, this movie is pretty good. Like there's a lot going well for it. The music is incredible. Like I don't think we talked about this before, but the score. I thought that score was fucking that score was slapping. Like, I was like, oh man,
yeah.
Even especially his theme, like specifically, like
once again another callback to the radio show.
The radio show,
yeah, like it was really really well done. And despite some, like I don't think that Alec Baldwin was like fully committed the entire time. There were a couple of scenes where it felt like he was phoning it in.
I think there's some behind the scenes stuff that we don't know. About Alec Baldwin's feelings towards this movie. I really want him to like talk about it again.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like, well, actually, apparently, and I was looking for this too. Apparently, YouTube is very guarded about this, but they came out with, I think, a Blu-ray of The Shadow in like 2004, and there's like a more recent interview with Alec Baldwin. But I would love to see that, like, because
me too.
See exactly how he feels about it now. But just like through our conversation, I made my decision how I feel about the movie now. And I would say that it does hold up.
It does.
I went back and forth because it's not terrible. Like there are a lot of things I wish it could have done. Like it could have focused more on like the race relations and stuff like that, like that we mentioned, and now knowing more about the characters, like it could have been so much cooler. And maybe I'm also just affected by the movies we watched before, but it's not that bad. It's like it's not as bad as like some of the like Double Dragon or any of these other.
Shout out to Double Dragon, by the way. We got a Bobo from Double Dragon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
my guy, a Bobo.
Yeah, I actually do have to mention.
I have to shout him out because I love this dude. He is a ridiculously good character actor. Look at this nigga. A Bobo from Double Dragon. He is Asian now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's actually Asian. He was like Mexican.
Yeah, I think he is supposed to be Native American in the movie because everybody had it was like the Mohawk gang.
Yeah, it was crazy. But so you think it holds up?
I think that it holds up. Like it's not a great movie. And I wouldn't even say it's like particularly good, but there's a lot of really great stuff in it, like music, production design, some good acting, good story, interesting enough story, but just like the dialogue is kind of a mess. sometimes. But yeah, it's not as offensive, especially not as offensive as I thought it could have been with an Asian villain.
Yep.
Like
in that
really
time period. Yep.
Yeah. But I guess Bill, it's time to ask you: does it hold up?
Well,
put a little English on it.
Yeah, the question is, look, my first answer is not my second answer. As much like you, this conversation has made me change my mind. And not just this conversation, but watching it this morning. I was like, you know what? This ain't bad. So it does hold up. Ladies and gentlemen, it holds up. It holds up because I'm going to set some fucking criteria one day for like, does it hold up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like some of these getting a pass. But but I'm gonna set some criteria one day. But one of my criteria is definitely is it unwatchable? Like when I say unwatchable, like is it too racist? Is it too sexist? Is it just like rapey? Is it creepy? You know what I mean? Like, like is it weird? Like that movie with was it Mark Wahlberg first movie where he's like the abusive boyfriend, like
that Reese Witherspoon movie.
That don't hold up. That's weird. And the thing about that movie's weird, and nothing really at the end like he like dies, but like nothing really like is resolved. Like this girl just gonna deal with this trauma for the rest of her life. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. So like that kind of shit don't hold up today. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one reason that it holds up. It none of the Asian tropes, none of the crazy stuff like that. Except obviously Obobo playing. And also they kept saying like stuff like
yeah, I don't think they were speaking Mandarin during that scene.
No, more than likely not.
I think that maybe Alec Baldwin spoke Mandarin at the very beginning, but other than that,
it
was a bunch of gibberish being spoke.
Yeah, that scene with the Bobo where they were like fighting the shadow. I was like, I don't want to sound insensitive, but like it sounds like they're just going ack at each other.
The second reason I would say it holds up is because the acting is actually solid. There's some stupid lines in this movie that could have done without. Like, I understand like the campy lines, like the fire is hot and the ice is wet.
No, the sun is shining, but the ice is slippery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's
in D&D terms, that's called thieves' cant.
So I was like, okay, I got you. But
you ever watch a spy movie where just needs a way to communicate and then code names and shit?
Totally, I was good with it. I was like, we're in a time period. You know what I'm saying? He can't text him, so it's okay.
I mean, you saw those tubes all over the city.
Exactly. He had an intricate system. I was not mad at that. I was not mad at that. But the acting was on point. You know what I'm saying? Like, other than the crazy, weird lines. Next time, you can be on top.
Like,
young LaRon did not know what that meant.
I was like, yo, son, he's dead.
It's like, are you sexually attracted to this man? Like the whole thing that we didn't touch on before.
It's the other life that Lamont leads. Yeah, but and the so a third criteria is as an engineer, I'm a sound guy. I like the sound. I want to hear the sound. And like you mentioned, the score was amazing. But the A&R kind of fell off.
Yeah,
so
the ADR was
50 for me on that, but it ends up balancing it out with the first two. So that's the new criteria, folks. That's a new criteria. Does it hold up? Acting, does it hold up in the sense of is it watchable, unwatchable? And 3, the audio.
Yeah, the music was like surprisingly great. That's probably my favorite part of this. That and the cinematography were probably like my favorite parts of the movie because
the CGI wasn't bad either.
Yeah, like actually,
falls into unwatchable or watchable.
Speaking of,
that's why it's Jerry Goldsmith. He did the music for it.
Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah.
Very nice. Yes. Shout out to you, Jerry Goldsmith, friend of the show.
Yeah, he writes in all the time. And like just to speak what you had mentioned earlier, LeRon, like the tunnels through the tunnel system that he has, and what you had mentioned about the music and the CGI, it kind of all comes together in that scene where we see the person put the envelope in the tube, and we see the CGI tubes go through like everything, and then the music, it just like books at that moment.
Yeah.
It's just like trying to really get you amped on like the world, and like I thought that was a really good scene. How
get you feeling good about New York City here in time period of 1920s.
Those roaring 20s, baby. Well, you got booming technology. Yeah, it was
only show 3 black people.
Yeah, there were no black people in the making of this film.
I would love it if they had a disclaimer at the end, just like that's like no animals were harmed at the end in the making of the show. It's like no black people were involved.
No black people were involved or hired for the making of this film.
That'd be great. At least you're being honest. But yeah, LeRon, before we get out of here, could you just let the people know where they can find you and maybe some stuff that you got coming up on your Ubly Tubly channel?
Sure. You can find me anywhere. You can find me on Twitter at READUS_1, and pretty much everywhere else at Readus 101. As stated before, I do analysis and opinion pieces on movies and television. I'm currently have a few things lined up for as far as movie retrospectives and things like that for Pride, and have a few video essays lined up. One being about how Jordan Get Out calls out the hypocrisy on the origin of body snatch horror, and that will be out, once my hyperfixation gets me to completely finish it. But that's currently my big project. Probably going to do a few retrospectives and opinion pieces before that comes out. So youtube.com/Readus101, and subscribe. Also, if you like my videos and you want to help contribute, I have a Patreon. The same thing, Readus_101. And you can find all that on my Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Linktrees, everywhere like that.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to watch that, man. Definitely been a big fan of your channel for a while. Guys, like if you want some recommendations on stuff to just dive into his channel, like his Wednesday videos, great. He's got a couple WandaVision videos that are incredible. He's got this great video about the Batman and just like propaganda. You guys should definitely check that one out as well. Goof Troop. He's got a lot of great videos. Like the guy's smart as shit, and you should check him out and subscribe. But guys, it's about that time. Thanks for watching.
Like, subscribe this channel.
Yeah, like and subscribe this channel. Don't leave us out. Because we do this every once in a while. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe so you can get updates on new videos. Check us out on Twitter, IG, TikTok, Spotify, iTunes, Letterboxd, likewise, all the internet things at The Drunk Banthas. Until next time, stay safe, my little agents of the shadow, and may the force be with you.